Tonight, an Alberta judge says a petition for a referendum on separation cannot go ahead.
It's a good win for Canada. It's a good win for Albertans.
Petition organizers and the Premier say appeals are on the way. With femicides on the rise in Quebec, a new bill named for a lost loved one.
When my sister died, I told myself that she wouldn't be dead for nothing.
The Artemis II astronauts touched down in Canada.
For us to be here, our first return to the country is just a real treat for us.
Their young audience felt the same way.
From CBC News, this is The National with Christine Barak.
Thank you for joining us. Adrian is on assignment. We begin in Alberta, where a judge has thrown out a petition for an independence referendum. Last week, a separatist group handed in the petition, claiming to have gathered more than 300,000 signatures. Their goal, put the question of a referendum on separation from Canada to Albertans. Now a court says it cannot go ahead. Julia Wong explains the reasons why and takes us through the political fallout.
Jubilation on the streets last week, as separatism supporters believed they had moved one step closer to triggering a referendum on Alberta leaving Canada, but that has now been quashed. In a court decision released Wednesday, an Alberta justice said that petition could not move forward, saying the question approved by the chief electoral officer had already been found to contravene a section of the Constitution, and that Alberta breached its duty to consult with First Nations.
It's a good win for Canada. It's a good win for Albertans.
The Athabasca Chippewa First Nation brought the court challenge, its chief calling for unity.
My advice to Danielle Smith is that, it's take the high road and let's build this country and work together.
But the Alberta Premier had fighting words.
We think that this decision is incorrect in law and anti-democratic, and we will be appealing it as a result.
Petition organizers say more than 300,000 Albertans signed their names. They say the Premier has no choice.
I believe that we should have the vote. I honestly believe that she will give us the vote. And I really don't believe that any government in her position could do anything else.
This professor agrees the Premier is in a difficult position politically, juggling separatists and First Nations.
It lays bare the fact that there are these irreconcilable tensions that there may exist at the crux of the Alberta independence movement. I think politically is a big problem for Smith, because this is always going to be something that she would have had to contend with.
Petition organizers are not backing down, and they say they're going to appeal. They plan to rally in the coming weeks to show the Premier how serious they are about a separatism question on the October ballot.
And Julia, what happens if it doesn't make it on the ballot?
Well, in short, petition organizers have already been calling on separatism supporters to join the United Conservative Party, to become members. And they say the Premier will have to answer to them when the party holds its annual general meeting in November.
Julia, thank you. Julia Wong in Edmonton tonight. CBC News has learned more about negotiations between Alberta and Ottawa on carbon pricing, one step toward a potential oil pipeline to the West Coast. Kate McKenna has the details and the reaction.
A breakthrough in negotiations months after Alberta and Ottawa signed this deal.
I think the Prime Minister played a critical role in making this happen, because it's a total 180 from the approach of the previous Prime Minister.
Sources say both sides reached an agreement on the industrial carbon price, a key component of the deal that paves the way for a pipeline. Premier Danielle Smith hinted something was coming while in Ottawa last week.
We had differences of opinion about how quickly we could move and the impact that it would have on the energy sector, and we found that we got closer today.
In last year's Memorandum of Understanding, Ottawa and Alberta agreed to bring the industrial carbon price up to $130 per ton, but said they'd negotiate a timeline. Sources now say it'll hit $130 in 2040, much less ambitious than the original federal plan under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
I think it's a disappointing outcome. The reason that we and so many others are focused on industrial carbon pricing is that just factually, it's the most important climate change policy in the country.
There was a lot of investment decisions that were kind of waiting to see where things were going to go. I think this is going to go a long way to help those investment decisions.
BC's premier says he's worried Alberta is getting a special deal.
We are in direct competition with Alberta on certain projects. We will not be in a competitive position if Alberta has a special federal carbon price that the rest of us don't have access to in the rest of Canada.
Meanwhile, industry experts say this deal matters.
We'll see this as, I think, an olive branch being extended by Ottawa. And moreover, I think Albertans believe that we have a very important contribution to make to this country, financially, culturally, and we want to do it.
Premier Danielle Smith says she still intends to submit a plan for a West Coast pipeline by July 1st, saying the province is still looking at 5 potential routes. And she's optimistic private sector companies will want to build it.
Kate, tomorrow the Prime Minister is set to make an announcement about clean energy. What more do we know?
Sources tell us this is going to be the new electricity strategy, including a plan to double the electricity infrastructure by 2050. After that, the Prime Minister is set to fly to Calgary on Friday to announce the carbon price deal with Alberta.
All right, thanks for this, Kate. Kate McKenna in Ottawa tonight. U.S. President Donald Trump arrived at Beijing's Great Hall of the People for a long-anticipated summit. China's President Xi Jinping met him before a large honor guard, all highly choreographed, but behind closed doors, things become more uncertain. Lisa Shing joins me now with more on this high-stakes summit. Lisa, Trump and Xi have various meetings planned for this summit. What do each of them want to get out of it?
Well, Christine, that first meeting is happening right now at the Great Hall of the People right on Tiananmen Square. And that's where Chinese President Xi Jinping greeted Trump with this extravagant ceremony, just the way Trump likes. Joining Trump was members of his cabinet, like Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Now, on this agenda are trade and tariffs. The U.S. would like to see China buy more U.S. goods like soybeans, planes, and energy, while China would likely welcome an easing of export restrictions on advanced AI chips and a change in the U.S. support for Taiwan. So while Xi talked about global stability, this is what Trump said.
We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out.
So the outcome, though, of these meetings still uncertain because there have been years of mistrust and competition between the two countries.
And it seems Trump is heading into this summit with a lot less leverage than he'd like.
Well, Iran certainly looms over this 2 days of meetings because Trump can't contain the conflict. And while he has outwardly said that he doesn't need China's help in this, he says the two will be discussing it. Now, China's position is also very quite strong. It's become a leader in tech, like in AI and in EVs. And so as U.S. influence is wavering, China is looking to assert itself militarily, economically, and technologically. So while we could see some deals being made, it's still a question of whether some of these fundamental issues that still remain between the two countries will be addressed over the next couple of days, Christine.
All right, Lisa Shing. Thank you so much, Lisa Shing in Toronto tonight. A former BC RCMP officer has been found not guilty of foreign interference.
I just want to go home. I want to return to my children. I want to try to rebuild my businesses.
William Miker was charged with acting as an agent of the Chinese government. He was accused of coercing a Canadian resident to return to China to face fraud charges. More than a dozen people in this country are in isolation tonight, all in an effort to prevent the spread of hantavirus. And while health officials say the risk is low, Tashana Reid shows the stakes are high.
There are still no positive hantavirus cases in Canada, but more people are being actively monitored. Ontario's Ministry of Health says 7 low-risk contacts have been identified, and the 3 previously reported high-risk contacts show no symptoms, all of them required to self-isolate for 45 days. This in addition to 2 people in Alberta and 4 passengers from the MV Hondius ship now isolating in British Columbia. Another 8 people in Quebec have also been identified as low-risk contacts.
This is a rare but potentially very severe illness, and we wouldn't want individuals who have the potential for infection to infect others.
The WHO says there are a total of 11 reported cases connected to the cruise ship outbreak. 3 people have died. In France, a woman is fighting for her life. She developed symptoms after she was evacuated from the cruise ship. The patient currently has the most severe form of cardiopulmonary presentation and is receiving what is the final stage of supportive care. One evacuee in Spain has also tested positive and has mild symptoms. Around the world, passengers who disembarked the ship are being watched closely in their home countries. Now, global researchers are trying to piece together how and where passengers became infected.
There are no indications that this virus is acting any different from the known virus circulating in some regions of the world.
Had this virus been different, some say things could have been much worse.
If this was a more transmissible virus with a shorter incubation period, we would see, unfortunately, widespread transmission on multiple continents.
25 crew members plus a doctor and a nurse remain on the MV Hondius as it makes its way to the Netherlands. The WHO say they are in daily contact with those on board. So far, all are in good health. Tashana Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
In the U.S., the Federal Aviation Administration says it's accelerating its plan to install transponders on airport vehicles to track their movements. This following a fatal crash between an Air Canada Express jet and a fire truck at LaGuardia Airport in March.
Stop, truck one, stop. Stop, truck one, stop. Stop, truck one, stop.
A preliminary report found the firefighters didn't realize those warnings from air traffic control were for them, and the truck did not have a transponder. Air Canada pilots Antoine Faure and Mackenzie Gunther were killed in the collision. Quebec's government is following in the footsteps of other provinces in an effort to keep women safe from intimate partner violence. Alexander Silberman on a new bill after a disturbing rise in femicides.
Gabby Renault, a Quebec mother of 2, believed to have been killed by her partner, found dead in her home in September in a presumed femicide, now honored with her name on a new bill aimed at better protecting women.
When my sister died, I told myself that she wouldn't be dead for nothing.
Family members and advocates have been pushing for the legislation, which allows a person concerned about their safety to ask police about their partner's past.
I know I couldn't help her, but if I could help others, I think she would be very proud of me.
Quebec's government promised action following a rise in alleged femicides. 10 suspected killings so far this year alone, compared to 14 in all of 2025.
We're just providing tools.
Quebec's domestic security minister says the bill would allow police to share information through advocacy groups. It's modeled on Clare's Law in the UK, named for a woman killed by a former partner who police knew to be dangerous.
It's going to give the intimate partner the opportunity to take a right decision.
Several Canadian provinces already have similar laws, including Alberta, Newfoundland and Labrador, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan, the first in 2020.
Some of the comments in the report speak to individuals saying, this saved my life.
But while advocates say the bill is a positive step, they're calling for more funding for shelters. In Quebec, half of the women who call the province's helpline are told there's no space for them.
Disclosure laws like this and legislation like this really only work if we also have all of the tools and resources in place to support those individuals in leaving.
The federal government is also taking action with legislation that would formally recognize femicide in the criminal code, considering such cases as first-degree murder. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Montreal.
If you are in need of resources to get help, visit endingviolencecanada.org or call 911 if you are in immediate danger. Government documents obtained by CBC News reveal major issues, including fraud, are plaguing Canada's international visa hubs. Priscilla Kisun Wong now with why some people paid hundreds of dollars just to get an appointment.
It's a fraud. It's not justifiable.
Salauddin says his family ran into issues at a visa office in Dhaka, Bangladesh, run on Canada's behalf by VFS Global. The immigration department has tight deadlines for applicants, 30 days to submit passports or fingerprints. Uddin says third-party resellers were block booking appointment slots, then charging the equivalent of $250 Canadian per person.
How can that be ethical?
Masood Rana says to get his family's application in on time, he felt he needed to pay roughly $300 extra to VFS Global for its premium service.
That could be too much for some people, and I don't think it's just.
Uddin and Rana's experiences line up with issues flagged in internal government documents. It took CBC about 2 years to obtain them from Canada's Immigration Department. They show red flags for some countries, including in Bangladesh, concerns about third-party misconduct, additional fees, and security screening. One government official alluding to third-party misconduct wrote this in 2024, "Well, we could write a novel about all the fraud we are seeing." VFS Global and its subsidiary TT Services have been awarded more than $770 million in taxpayer dollars since 2012. Together, they operate 164 visa application centers for Canada around the world.
We know that it's not just one center, it's multiple centers in multiple countries.
This immigration lawyer says her client recently ran into issues at a VFS visa center in Mexico.
These issues are still very prevalent today and will continue to happen unless IRCC takes further action.
In a statement, VFS says in addition to third-party criminal actors, it's on guard against criminal activity by its own staff and says they undergo deep checks. It says premium services are optional and approved by the Canadian government. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada wrote that its oversight is robust and it takes fraud allegations seriously. The department says VFS has met its contractual expectations. These visa services contracts end in 2027. Uddin and Rana say they're speaking up in hopes it will lead to more diligence system-wide. Priscilla Kizan-Huang, CBC News, Ottawa.
The drug counselor who helped sell ketamine to actor Matthew Perry has been sentenced to 2 years in prison.
What do you say to Matthew Perry's family, sir?
I'm regretfully sorry.
Eric Fleming pleaded guilty to distribution of ketamine resulting in death. He was responsible for connecting Perry to the convicted drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen. He is the fourth defendant to be sentenced in connection to Perry's death in 2023. An academic with controversial views on residential schools says she was pranked by a satirical comedy show funded in part by CBC Entertainment. As Griffin Yeager shows us, now she and others are questioning the use of tax dollars to target people with certain political views.
What's this about? Tell me what this is about. Who are you?
Former university professor Frances Widdowson took this live stream. She says she was targeted for her views on Canada's residential schools by a satirical prank show funded in part by CBC Entertainment, an arm of the public broadcaster.
Expose me. For the CBC to participate in that, I think is disgraceful.
Widdowson says she was first approached in March and asked to be part of a docuseries.
It just seemed like a wonderful opportunity to go into many of the concerns that I have about the academic settings these days.
Widdowson's been vocal about her questioning of unmarked graves found at a residential school in Kamloops, BC, and was fired in 2021 from Mount Royal University. She says after about half an hour, 2 men walked in
and dumped a whole bunch of children's shoes on the coffee table in front of me.
Others on social media also say they've been approached or deceived with similar offers traced to the same production. CBC's head of public affairs confirmed that the show is in early production for CBC Entertainment and APTN, clarifying in a statement that CBC News and APTN News have no involvement in this production, and that satirical prank shows are a long-established television format used by broadcasters. But on social media, many are questioning whether public dollars should be spent for pranks targeting people for their political views. The show's producer, NLT1 Productions, also gets funding from the Indigenous Screen Office, which describes the series as having an Indigenous activist trio that uses pranks as a form of social action, akin to shows like Borat and the Yes Men. CBC News has reached out to 2 people listed as involved with the production, as well as APTN and the Indigenous Screen Office, but didn't hear back before the deadline. CBC's head of public affairs added that the show is still in production and it's premature to comment on it. Griffin Yeager, CBC News, Toronto. A high-profile double murder trial in South Carolina is heading for a do-over. Lawyer Alex Murdaugh was convicted in 2023 of murdering his wife and son, catching international attention and inspiring documentaries by Netflix and HBO. The state Supreme Court now says a county clerk interfered with the jury during the trial. Murdaugh will stay in jail, though, because he is serving a 40-year sentence for financial crimes. Fresh off their mission around the moon, the Artemis II astronauts were welcomed in Ottawa.
I felt like Canada was with us as we flew around the moon.
The message the crew had for the Prime Minister and others next. Plus, why is Keir Starmer so unpopular?
Many MPs simply cannot conceive of a situation in which he leads them into the next election.
Breaking down the push to oust the UK Prime Minister. And later, a die-hard Habs fan travels more than 15,000 kilometers to see his team.
It's pretty rare to find an Australian following ice hockey.
How he turned a social media post into his playoff dream. We're back in 2.
Todd, you have a special message for him.
My message is, you are the Calder Trophy winner.
An emotional moment for a proud hockey dad. Canadian Matthew Schaefer was awarded the NHL's Calder Memorial Trophy for Rookie of the Year on Good Morning America. His family on hand to break the news. The 18-year-old defenseman for the New York Islanders becomes the youngest player ever to win the award. Prime Minister Mark Carney welcomed the crew of the Artemis II in Ottawa today, including Canadians Jeremy Hansen and Jenny Gibbons. It was their first time in the country since the historic lunar mission. Ashley Burke now with their message to Canada.
I think we saw that crater.
Astronauts who traveled to the far side of the moon, back on Earth, and now on Canadian soil.
It's a big lesson, I think, for all Canadians of what teamwork does.
The crew of Artemis II launching their Canadian tour.
For us to be here, our first return to the country, a warm embrace of Canada that we felt from the extremes of the moon is just a real treat for us.
2, 1, booster ignition. The astronauts blasted off last month.
The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon.
They ventured farther into space than any human before.
We are 201,726, now 25 nautical miles from planet Earth.
Canadian Jeremy Hansen, one of the 4 astronauts.
When we get back, we'd love to make sure this gets to you. So I wrote your name on the back, well, your title on the back.
Hansen now gifting that very flag to the Prime Minister.
That is amazing.
The crew also returning with stories about Canada from deep space.
The moment we went behind the moon and lost communication with the Earth, and one of the things that we decided to do was have a maple cookie.
Their message about unity.
We have a cancel culture. We tear people apart for making mistakes. We make people afraid. We use fear. And this was just an affirmation that everybody knows this is true. We're better together. We're better when we create.
Kids in awe of what they saw and heard.
To meet actual astronauts that went in space is very cool.
I loved that experience. My favorite part was the maple cookies.
Others reflecting on just how fragile Earth is.
Everyone that we've ever loved lives on this planet, so it behooves us to protect it.
The astronauts showing the next generation the best of humanity and beyond. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Despite a tenuous ceasefire with Iran, there is still no end in sight to the war.
I think the problem is that Trump overestimates the power of his office.
Why the U.S. strategy doesn't seem to be working. Plus, the UK Prime Minister's leadership is in deep trouble.
I think there's an element of visceral hatred of Keir Starmer that is difficult to explain.
Margaret Evans looks at why he's so unpopular. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world next. Britain's Prime Minister won the biggest Labour Party majority in decades just 2 years ago.
He's just made mistake after mistake as Prime Minister.
Will you resign? Why he's now fighting for his political life. But first, Trump's promise of a quick war with Iran isn't playing out.
You've right now got a situation of no peace, no war, essentially a stalemate.
Why the president's silver bullet strategy has missed its mark. Trump says the ceasefire is on life support. Not long ago, he said talks were going well. Andrew Chang, host of About That, looks at the confusing messaging and why the U.S. may not know how to end this.
Does the U.S. even know how to end the war on Iran?
We are absolutely obliterating them.
If there's no deal, fight to resume.
The ceasefire is on massive life support.
It's been more than 10 weeks since the start of the war, and we seem to keep hitting this point over and over again where Trump and his team say mission accomplished.
We're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete.
Like, how many times have we seen this headline? Very good talks in progress. That was a little less than a month into the war. Very positive discussions. This is 2 months into the war. And these are from just a few days ago. Very good talks. A deal is very possible after very good talks. And just to really make the point, this was the messaging even before the start of the war. February 6th, Trump calls U.S. and Iran talks in Oman very good. February 19th, this is about a week before the U.S. launched into war. Good talks are happening with Iran, which makes you wonder, considering how long this has dragged on, if the U.S. has miscalculated the outcome of this war very badly and keeps doing so. Not that the U.S. is losing, but its strategy isn't exactly working either. Let's consider why.
I think the problem is that Trump overestimates the power of his office and the power of the United States as a country.
I've mentioned this in previous videos that the US doesn't fight wars the way most other countries do. It's not trying to win long, drawn-out fights like a boxer trying to win on points. It's trying to win quickly by knockout. Venezuela is a good example.
Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II.
A smash and grab raid by U.S. Special Forces to capture the country's president, Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. had a problem. It fired a silver bullet.
This was such a swift and incredible military operation. No American lives were lost.
The United States strategy in warfare has been less a war of attrition and one of shock and awe.
We're winning decisively with brutal efficiency, total air dominance, and an unbreakable will to accomplish the president's objectives.
The U.S. may have been looking for this same kind of rapid resolution when it launched into war with Iran, because people sometimes forget the U.S. and Iran were in talks over nuclear weapons before the start of the war, and it wasn't going well. February 10th, Iran accused of stalling. February 12th, Iran would accuse the U.S. of holding things back. February 20th, it looks like neither side trusts the other, and 1 day later, a question. Will there ever be a deal?
I think the president last June got frustrated with the speed of negotiation.
So came war, and the U.S. fired its silver bullet.
The United States and Israel have launched airstrikes across Iran.
The U.S. is calling the operation, quote, epic fury.
February 28th, day one, the U.S. and Israel conduct expansive airstrikes across Iran, the most devastating of which happens here in Tehran, the country's capital and nerve center.
Iranian state media has confirmed its supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has been killed in his compound.
America is winning, decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy.
Things seem to go well for the U.S. at first. 2 days into the war, Trump tells reporters this'll last a month, max.
President Trump over the weekend told the Daily Mail he expects the operation will last roughly 4 weeks.
But a day later, the timeline expands in a very subtle way. 4 to 5 weeks, and with the capability to go far longer than that.
Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared
Well, I think
for
you could
this war
say
to
it both.
last?
We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here, I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further.
The U.S. might have thought, cut off the head. This guy's ruled Iran for nearly 40 years. Surely they'll buckle. But they didn't.
For the first time in history, Iranian officials say the country has closed the Strait of Hormuz following joint strikes from the U.S. and Israel.
And it's very telling that the new Ayatollah, his very first public statement read by an Iranian state TV presenter, one of the very first things he mentions, the country's new weapon, leverage over world oil.
Oil prices now surging after the attack. $80 a barrel, $90 a barrel,
$100 a barrel.
The regime is much more than its leadership. There's an entrenched power system that goes all the way, down through within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that really helps keep the people in power. And cutting off the heads of that doesn't eliminate the system.
Iran's not Venezuela. It's the first country in the last 15 months since Trump came to office that has stood up to Trump and said, we don't care what the cost is. This is not what we're going to do under no circumstance.
By this point, it was clear shock and awe wasn't going to work. Iran's military was never meant to fight the U.S. one-to-one on a level playing field. Speedboats, kamikaze drones, laying mines in the strait, launching missiles at neighbors. Iran's fighting force could be beaten, but it couldn't be contained, and things were about to get worse.
I thought oil prices would go to $200, $250. It's at $100 now. And I think you're surprised, and I'm surprised.
Iran is vowing to attack any ship trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
Oil prices have been on a roller coaster and remain quite a bit higher this morning.
By this point, shutting down the Strait of Hormuz had become a truly urgent problem, untenable globally, and a nightmare domestically for Trump himself. He needed another silver bullet. On April 5th, so a little over a month into the war, Trump snaps. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day all wrapped up in one in Iran. This was widely taken as a threat to indiscriminately bomb Iran's civilian infrastructure, which is extreme because that would be a war crime. And Trump goes on, open the strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. And there was a deadline.
We're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and after that, they're going to have no bridges, they're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah.
And Trump goes one step further, threatening to commit what sounds an awful lot like genocide. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. Now, we have no way of knowing if this was, in fact, the plan, or if there was a plan at all. Because on the brink, with only hours to spare, maybe this new silver bullet, the most extreme ultimatum imaginable, maybe it worked. Suddenly there was a deal, an agreement to stop the fighting for 2 weeks. This was the single most significant development towards peace the world had seen since the war started, just over a month earlier. But this would be the flimsiest of ceasefires.
I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't.
Within a day, Israel would launch its heaviest bombardment yet on Hezbollah, Iran's ally in Lebanon. The strait was shut down once again. The ceasefire, a bit of a joke.
Look, I think right from the beginning, one of the key contradictions here was between military objectives and strategic objectives.
This is the thing. Ceasefires don't work all that well if there's no real agreement on how to solve underlying problems. At first, once the Lebanon issue was cleared up, it sounded like they had. And if you'd only read the headlines of the day, you might have believed this was all coming to an end. The Iranians had agreed to everything. Their nuclear program suspended. Their leverage over the strait given up. The timeline faster than you could imagine. Except literally a day later, after all those headlines come out, there's this one. More ships attacked. The U.S. refusing to lift its own blockade of Iranian ports, and the strait itself was closing once again.
The U.S. won this war, militarily speaking. Clearly, the U.S. and Israel caused more damage in Iran to the Iranian regime than vice versa. But what's the end result? There's been no change in the regime. There's not necessarily been a removal of Iran's ability to assert its power through its proxy militias. And, you know, the nuclear question is still up in the air.
I think the administration thought they could get away with this attack in the same way that they got away with the attack in June. But the problem here was that the president's amorphous policy objectives or political objectives at the end of this conflict left a door open to Iran causing all sorts of madness and mayhem.
Yeah, talk about madness and mayhem. You can't even realistically follow all the ups and downs. May 3rd, U.S. Central Command announces Project Freedom, a plan to escort and protect tanker traffic in the Strait. A massive effort with massive military heft. But less than 48 hours later, the operation is paused indefinitely. The reason? Great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran. And so the operation put on pause to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed.
We're in I call it a skirmish, because that's what it is. It's a skirmish.
There's both a lack of technical sophistication on the U.S. side, certainly an impatience on the U.S. side, and I think those have both brought us to the place in which we find ourselves today.
I think what we're seeing in Iran right now is not necessarily that America has no way of winning. It's more of a real-time realization that military power doesn't guarantee a win. There are limits.
We're doing unbelievably well, as we did in Venezuela, where it was rapid, over in one day.
And while the U.S. can bomb Iran, kill its leaders, blockade its ports, destroy its navy, neutralize its missiles, none of these things seems to have changed the fundamentals.
We're doing very well in Iran. It's going very smoothly, and we'll see what happens.
And ultimately, war is much easier to declare over than to actually end.
The conflict is now 75 days old and has slammed the global economy. Oil is hovering at well over $100 a barrel Canadian. Coming up, inside the rebellion dividing Britain's government.
I think there's an element of visceral hatred of Keir Starmer that is difficult to explain.
Why so many members of Keir Starmer's own government want him out. Next. Britain's Prime Minister won a landslide victory less than 2 years ago. Now, many of his own MPs want him gone.
He's lost a lot of trust in the public. A lot of what he's saying is going against what true Labour is about.
Dozens of Labour MPs calling for resignation, 4 ministers out the door, and 1 PM refusing to budge. The King opened Britain's Parliament in London today as Prime Minister Keir Starmer's future hangs in the balance. Margaret Evans now on why Britain has turned on the Labour Party leader.
Will you resign, Prime Minister? Is your term over?
Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer is in trouble.
Pressure is mounting on the Prime Minister in the building behind me.
It feels honestly so far gone for Keir Starmer.
It feels now inevitable.
Less than 2 years after leading the Labour Party to a massive victory, he's hugely unpopular and now fighting to keep his job. Here's why.
Keir Starmer at the moment is just about the most unpopular Prime Minister we've ever had in the United Kingdom, which is startling in some ways because whilst he hasn't been a fantastic Prime Minister, there's no way he's that bad.
Starmer's critics disagree.
I think the reason why he's unpopular is because he's lied a lot to people, so he's lost a lot of trust in the public. A lot of what he's saying is going against what true Labour is about.
Starmer's win in 2024 brought an end to 14 years of Conservative rule, and above all, he promised change, not just in terms of dealing with the economy, but how to do politics.
Cue early scandals over gifts, including free Taylor Swift tickets for Starmer and some of his ministers, along with unpopular policies he's had to reverse, like cutting winter fuel subsidies for the elderly.
He's just made mistake after mistake as Prime Minister, whether it's the repeated U-turns, whether it's the scandal around Taylor Swift tickets or him getting free glasses or whatever, the sort of slight whiff of corruption about all of this, whether it's his failure to tell a convincing narrative to the British people. It turns out that for many people, he's not been the Prime Minister they hoped he would be.
What a beautiful accent, too.
Starmer's judgment also took a big hit when he appointed Peter Mandelson, Britain's ambassador to the United States, having to fire him when the depth of Mandelson's friendship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein was revealed. But external factors, not of Starmer's own making and not unique to the United Kingdom, have also played their part.
Polarization, fragmentation, volatility. Understandable in a way, impatience from voters, given protracted stagnation since 2008 and since 2016 as well. And that does, I think, help explain some of the severity of the problems facing Starmer. But unfortunately for Starmer, it's not the only explanation for why he's in trouble.
When voters delivered a huge slap to Labour in recent local elections, the losses were so big that dozens of Starmer's own MPs called for his resignation.
Keir Starmer's personal brand now appears so tarnished that many MPs simply cannot conceive of a situation in which he leads them into the next election because he's seen as a broken brand.
I think there's an element of visceral hatred of Keir Starmer that is difficult to explain among large swathes of the electorate.
One of the few opinion poll bumps for Starmer was when he resisted US pressure to support Washington in its war against Iran.
Because this is not our war, and we are not going to be dragged into it.
Starmer's supporters say he's strong on the international stage, but even his sympathizers admit he has trouble breaking through at home.
What is it about him?
I don't know. I think maybe charisma, lack of charisma perhaps, and failing to get his message across to normal people. He speaks in a very corporate kind of lawyer way. That's possibly it.
I think he had to be very measured and balanced at the beginning to win against the Tories, to get a different middle ground. I don't think he's been nearly as bad as some of the other people that I've witnessed since I've been alive. I'm 36, and so I've seen lots of prime ministers.
In 2022, Britain's Conservatives went through 3 prime ministers in less than 2 months, a revolving door of leaders.
We did it!
Starmer says stepping down would open the country up to the same kind of chaos. But if his challengers have their way, it won't be up to Starmer.
To force Starmer out, 81 MPs need to trigger a formal leadership challenge. That's 1/5 of the seats the Labour Party currently holds. Coming up, an unlikely Habs fan travels over 15,000 kilometres for the playoffs.
Pretty rare to find an Australian following ice hockey, let alone the only French-Canadian team.
His journey from Australia to the Bell Centre, next in our moment. You're looking at Australian Habs fan Perry Clinton and his girlfriend Ellie. They received a special invitation to Game 3 of the Habs versus Sabres series. The invitation came from Habs player Cole Caulfield, who just happened to score a power play goal in Game 3. Tonight, his journey is our moment.
Pretty rare to find an Australian following ice hockey, let alone the only French-Canadian team. My girlfriend Ellie, and she's from Montreal. She just taught me everything there was to know, and I tried to make a bit of a more of a light-hearted video. One of the players from the Montreal Canadiens, Cole Caulfield, he commented on it and sort of said, are you packing for the playoffs?
Appreciate you being on board, and go Habs.
So it's been a 24-hour, flight from door to door, and an amazing experience at the Bell Centre. We were watching, and the Habs got the power plays. All of a sudden, the puck goes to Caulfield, and then Caulfield gets his goal. At the end of the game, Caulfield, gets up to the set at the stage and he sort of sees me. He's like, hey, and we just chuck him a quick shackers, and then he's like, hey, bro. It's been one continuous pinch me moment.
The whimsy of superfans is just amazing. And he thought he was the only Australian Habs fan, but since he started posting on this, other Habs fans in Australia started responding. So he's planning to invite them over for watch parties when he gets back home. With the time difference, he'll be serving up coffee and eggs. Well, from all of us here at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Christine Birak. Take care.